comes from the book of Joshua. I'll be reading from the book of Joshua, the first chapter, and the 9th verse. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Joshua knew these words of the Lord. And likewise, so did David. David said, "The Lord is my shepherd. What shall I want?" And Jesus told his disciples that the Comforter would come, that we would not be left as orphans. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Now, for some people, that's a reality. I love to hear Bobby's testimony, too blessed to be stressed. That tells me that that is working, that that is a reality in his life, that the Lord his God is present in his life, and he is in touch with the Lord, and he can make that his testimony. And sometimes he's had things he could worry about. He certainly had things that he could be afraid about or be discouraged about. But his testimony is, I am too blessed to be stressed. The Lord's presence in my life is strong enough that I'm not discouraged, that I'm not afraid. Now, we live in a world where a lot of people do not have that testimony. We live in a world where, for a lot of people, God is very distant. God is very far. They're frightened of God. God is somebody that they run away from. And if you run away from God and you're afraid of God, you don't want God in your life because he's scary to you, and you only have yourself to depend on, you're going to be afraid. You're going to be discouraged. For some people, this is a way of life. And every single day they're afraid. Or every single day they're discouraged. I knew a lady when I lived in Michigan. She got a dividend through the mail. Some investment she had paid her a dividend check of over $1,000. So, for a lot of people, they get a check of $1,000. That would be, yay! I got $1,000. This is great. She wasn't expecting it. Here's a check. You can go to the bank and cash it. It's $1,000. But she was so used to being discouraged that when she got that check, this is going to raise my taxes. I'm going to have to pay more income tax. And I said to her, it's $1,000. They're probably not going to tax you $1,000 on this. It's probably not going to raise your taxes that much. Might not raise your taxes at all. But she had to be discouraged. That was her way of life was to face every single day with a cloud over her head. And so, no, I have to be discouraged. It's a $1,000 check. I've got to find some way to be discouraged about it. It's going to raise my taxes. And we've even developed names to describe Debbie Downers. You ever hear that phrase? This person's a Debbie Downer. Every single thing, and you know it's going to end up being bad. We're going to have to get back to things being bad somehow. because this person's a Debbie Downer. You know, it's a way of life. It's a way of being. And you can live that way, and a lot of people do. You can live your life being afraid constantly, living in fear. Isn't that a terrible burden? Isn't that a terrible way to live? Now, life is full of challenges. Life is full of things to be figured out. You know, and you want to be sort of thinking, how am I going to address this? You know, we've got bad weather setting in. I'm already looking at the forecast and trying to calculate, okay, what am I going to do? There might be some Sundays where it would be best for me to come up on a Saturday, spend the night at the parsonage. That way I'm there. That way I'm not calling in Pennington Gap saying, guys, I know it's 11:15, 11:20, but I'm stuck in Pennington Gap. You know, there's thinking, there's reasoning. But you're not really being afraid. You're being proactive in how you're going to engage these problems. That's different than being constantly in fear and constantly thinking that there's a rock over your head that at any moment is going to drop. I had to laugh a few years ago, 2012. Everybody thought the world was going to end. It's 2012. The Mayans had a calendar. It stopped in 2012. They were talking about that calendar at school. Well, you think the world's going to end? It's 2012. And I looked at them and I said, you guys are young, but I lived during the time of duck and cover. I lived during the time when they taught us to put our hands over our heads and crouch under our school desks because the Russians were going to drop a nuclear bomb and it was just going to wipe everything out. And we lived through that era. We lived through that. I'm certainly not going to be afraid of some calendar. I don't recommend you be afraid either. I really think I'd sign up for spring term 2013 because you'll probably be around to go to school. But for some people, they're afraid, or they look for something to be afraid about. If you have to look for a calendar to scare you, you're looking for something to be afraid about. You're trying to find something that you can be afraid about. Some people live like that. That's how they live their lives. But the scripture shows us a much, much better way to live. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Be strong. Be courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. Why? Not because of yourself, but because the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Wherever you go, the Lord your God will be with you. That should bring you hope. That should remove the fear. That should remove the discouragement. We are not strong in and of ourselves, but we have a very mighty and powerful God that we serve. And He is with us every step of the way. And because He is with us wherever we go, we can be strong. We can be courageous. Our God is with us. So as we go into this new year, 2015, will there be challenges? Of course there's going to be challenges. Of course there's going to be problems to surmount, difficulties to deal with. Oftentimes the thing we thought was going to happen isn't what happened. It's something else comes up that we have to deal with. But whatever it is, Whatever the year 2015 brings, we should be strong. We should be courageous. We should not be afraid. We should not be discouraged. Because the Lord our God will be with us wherever we go. Let's turn now to our invitation hymn. And I want to introduce an idea